Hey there again, y'all, and kind of wanted to do a little, I guess, kind of expansion on my last video, the whole story of my life in the Bible Belt. Well, this video specifically tackles this sort of false dichotomy of the separation of church and state. Honestly, if you don't know what I'm talking about the whole constitutional idea that organized religion is completely distant and overall separate than a secular state, specifically the United States of America. We have a constitutional separation of church and state. If you read the First Amendment to the Constitution, and I'm kind of wanting to tackle this kind of myth that we have this separation of church and state in practice. This kind of has a little bit to do with my time in Richmond Hill, Georgia. I noticed there were a lot of what some political figures call, blue laws, which are laws specifically, or directly influenced by religion. For instance, I remember when I was living in Richmond Hill, Georgia, there was this one time my mom actually wanted to buy a 6-pack, 12-pack of beer for a kind of housewarming party, which is funny. She doesn't even drink, actually. She's been sober for over 20 years, so the fact that she was buying beer was kind of interesting, honestly. But anyway, back to my main point. I guess she wanted to buy basically she wanted to buy some beer, and this was on a Sunday. I remember that. There was this law in Georgia. I don't know if it's still in effect anymore. Keep in mind this was over 10 years ago. But yeah, anyway, she wanted to buy this beer, but since it was on a Sunday, she couldn't because there was a law. Whether or not it's still in effect, there was a law in the state of Georgia where you couldn't buy any sort of alcoholic beverages on a Sunday, which was directly linked to a blue law, basically. For instance, you couldn't buy, alcoholic beverages, or even, go into any sort of facility, whether it's a bar, tavern, pub, or whatever, and buy alcohol because Sundays are considered, the holy day, or the basically the Sabbath or whatever, which is funny because the Sabbath day originally was on a Saturday. If you go all the way back to the Old Testament. But anyway, that's not really the point. The point that there are still laws like that in effect, blue laws. That's kind of one area where the, separation of church and state basically is kind of violated, on a kind of legal, a legal basis. So that's one example I can think of, or the blue laws. I don't know, the fact that these blue laws are still in effect is actually a direct violation of the separation of church and state, a direct violation of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. But even more than that, there's this idea of victimless crime laws, and I'm gonna go more into detail about the kind of moral paradox of victimless crime laws in another video. But for now, I kind of want to just tackle this sort of false dichotomy of the separation of church and state. And I know people bring up the word God on the money or whatever. I'm not too concerned about that as much. I know it's more symbolic than anything else, but really I'm more talking about actual policies that people or I guess politicians kind of based these laws on, really this entirely based on religion and nothing else. So like I said, in my next video, I kind of want to go a little more into detail about what I mean by these sort of laws against victimless crimes. I know I did a video exclusively talking about, the war on drugs. I kind of want to go more into detail about that as well. Not just the war on drugs, but the war on, sex work, specifically prostitution. And then I want to do another video on, euthanasia via physician-assisted suicide. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely go into detail about those topics. Anyway, yeah, that kind of concludes my rant about this sort of, myth that we have this separation of church and state in practice. So yeah, if you had any, questions or comments about this particular issue, let me know, and I'll see y'all next time. All right, take care, bye.